Hey, what is going on, guys? It's DK back at you with another video here to break down the three-game CSGO main slate on Wednesday. Before I get into the video, if you guys are new to the channel, my name's DK. I make daily videos breaking out NBA, NFL, and esports daily fantasy sports slates. Esports including Call of Duty, League of Legends, and this one Counter-Strike CSGO. Also, I just want to say thank you guys for all the support recently. Really do appreciate it. We are now at, I believe, 3.25 thousand subscribers, so slowly growing. NBA, we do have some good news. I saw on Twitter there's a possibility that they might be targeting July 22nd as a return. I saw NHL is coming back, even though I don't really play NHL DFS. That's always a good sign. So we are getting some positive news for real life sports, but until then we're going to continue to grind out these esports videos. So we have a really nice 3-game slate here. I'm excited to talk about this. We have a lot to talk about with the previous slate as well, so let's jump into it. Again, before we get into players and their prices for this slate, let's take a look back at my lineup here from Tuesday slate. So this is my final lineup here. I went with Farlig, Automatic, Bennett, Brolin, Nico, and BMS. So obviously didn't go great for me. That the last game, the 100 Thieves versus Gen G game, I knew was the key to the slate. Unfortunately, I guessed wrong in the main slate. Now for my showdown slate, I hedged my bet and went the opposite way. Just because normally I kind of go with my main slate lineup and the showdown lineup, I kind of go all in on who I like and kind of stick with that. But that one was such a toss up that I decided I'll go with the Gen G part in my main lineup, but go with the 100 Thieves stack in the showdown. So the two guys I like the most on 100 Thieves, JKS and Jakeem, were the two top scorers. So if you guys went that direction and went 100 Thieves, you probably had a pretty good day. JKS and Jakeem were really, really solid. Then went Gratisfaction, and Bennett was really close to taking down the showdown, finished in 32nd place out of, I don't know how many entries are in this big tournament. First place lineup was, sorry about that. Internet cut out there for a sec. But this is the first place lineup in the showdown. Again, it had JKS and Jakeem in the captain spot. He went Psalm as the one-off, which is interesting. He was low on 14%, and then Liaz. So really unique lineup there, but I was close, about 15 points away from taking home the showdown there. Another thing I did want to bring up here for the main slate, or a couple points, I guess. One, Mir on Team Spirit. I don't know if you didn't follow that today. He had a really good game 1, was really solid in game 2 as well, and then was having computer crashing issues and was actually unable to finish out the match. So they had to sub in, actually 2 players. They subbed in, I think their coach and then a sub. So actually 2 players subbed in. The coach, I think, subbed in for the rest of game 2, and then they brought in Dima for game 3. It was unfortunate if you played Mir. That's, I guess the slight risk sometimes in esports. Stuff like that can happen. It's very, very tilting. So unfortunately, if you went with Mir, you got a little bit unlucky because he was on pace to have a really, really good game. But back to my main slate and how I went about the roster construction. So I want to be a little bit unique here. Normally I stick with the 2-2-2. I think that is kind of an optimal way to build lineups, but I want to differentiate myself a little bit, and I thought that Fnatic versus Godsent game was going to be a close one. Fnatic should have won that one 2-0. Or not Fnatic, Godsent. They choked that second map, and then the third map was pretty tilting. Fnatic won very easily. I think they won 16-3. So if you played a Fnatic stack, you kind of got bailed out at the end because they were on pace to get 2-0'd. And besides Crims, no one was really having a good day. So you got a little bit lucky if you rolled the Fnatic stack. Not saying it was bad, but you did get a little bit lucky if that's the route you went. Everything else here, again, I paired Nico with BMS. I mentioned him as a value option. The Gen G guys didn't really make it for me. One thing I do want to bring up too before we move on is the phase guys and recency bias, right? So coldzera was about 50%. I want to talk about him was going to be very, very popular today. You had Rain at 6%. 6% to about 50%. sure, Cold Zero is probably the optimal play there, but if you're going to get someone at, what, a tenth of the ownership, then that's something I'll take all day. So sometimes it is, better to play, suboptimal plays if you're going to get guys at way lower ownership, right? This is in the $33 tournament. Cold Zero, about 50% owned, Reign 6%. I think Brokey, where's Brokey? Brokey was 15% too. So you saw Cold eat a bunch of that ownership. I think it just, makes it interesting because there's definitely ways you can differentiate yourself. So just thought I'd bring that up. But that's about it for the look back on Tuesday's slate. So I guess we can look through the numbers here really quick. Yeah, so Mir was looking good, did not finish that second map. IDIS Balance actually had a great game 3 to kind of put him in the top there. But yeah, Certus finished out the last of game 2, and then they subbed in Dima. So really, really interesting there. On the Fnatic side, Crims had the best day there, plus 20. I think for that reason, he's going to be the most popular Fnatic player on this slate for Wednesday. It's how it works, right? Talked about with Cold. I've been talking about this for a long time now with CSGO. It's just recency bias. People are going to go right back to Crims. So if you want to differentiate yourself, maybe get Flush at a similar price, or Brolin, who is kind of a letdown, right? On the Godsend side, it was Farlig that had the best day. He had an amazing day going into the first 2 games, but again, unfortunately, they really got destroyed that third map, which hurt Farlig, because otherwise he was on pace to crush it. Again, a little bit of tilting for myself because I had him in the captain spot. And then the 100 Thieves Gen G game. Again, I mentioned JCast, Jakeem are my favorite 100 Thieves plays. They were really solid. On the Gen G side, everyone struggled. Automatic was actually the worst at minus 15. I think for that reason, Automatic is a guy that's be very, very low owned in this upcoming slate, but we'll get to that more in a sec. All right, that's really the look back. So now let's move on to this slate. Let's take a look at the Vegas odds. So we originally had the Godsend versus Team Spirit game, but that one looks like it's getting postponed due to, again, Mir having computer crashing issues. So they're going to move Navi versus Vitality into that slot, and I'm really excited to watch that one in the early game. They don't have it right now on Bovada, but I believe I saw Navi was about minus 190 favorites. And then we have Fnatic versus FaZe, another matchup of 2 powerhouses. Basically, a pick 'em here. Fnatic or FaZe, I should say, are slight favorites at minus 130. And then Evil Geniuses versus Gen G. Evil Geniuses are minus 170 favorites. So let's talk about the first game here, Vitality versus Navi. And again, this one is going to be a fun one to watch. We have 2 guys on opposite sides that really do carry their respective rosters. We have ZywOo on the Vitality side and Simple on the Navi side. So we have some heavy hitters on the slate. We have ZywOo. We have, again, Simple. We have Nico. We have Brolin. We have Breezy, right? There's a lot of guys to spend up for where I'll talk about, interesting strategy at the end. I do mention a decent amount on some of my videos is playing someone really cheap in the captain spot to basically allow you to get whoever else you want in your lineup. I'll talk about that more at the end of the video, but that's something I'm very much considering because we have a lot of guys that, again, a lot of those top, those stars on this slate that really do carry their rosters. So on the Vitality side, ZywOo, 9.4K. I think he's someone that obviously I have interest in, right? The issue with him is he is a little bit more up and down, right? Compared to maybe a guy like Simple or Nico, I think a little safer. Whereas ZywOo is a guy that does have, a somewhat low floor, right? He's put in like a 2-0 win. He's put up 35 fancy points, 40 fancy points. So he does have somewhat of a low floor, but when he's playing really well, again, he uses the AWP, which is always a positive. He can really put the team on his back. We saw it, I believe, against a Fnatic game, which for some reason DraftKings doesn't have it, but he had like 150 fancy points. He just completely took over. So he does have that potential to really, really take over. The risk with him, again, he does have, I guess, a somewhat low floor if he's not playing well. The other options on his team, Shox, Apex, Mistu, and RPK, I think are all in play. I think, if we look at, let's go to Vitality really quick and their, stats for the last 3 months. Again, ZywOo looks great here, 0.78 kills per round, 0.62 deaths per round. Everyone else is negative, I believe. Yep, everyone else is negative. Nothing crazy here, but looking at their price points, where we have Shocks, Apex, Mistu, and RPK, I think a 5K RPK is interesting to pair ZywOo with. Not a guy that has enormous upside, but he's the cheapest of the bunch, and he has pretty similar numbers to everyone else here, right? They're not great. No one's great besides ZywOo on this roster. But, I'm probably just going to go, my next favorite play would probably be the cheapest. So I think looking to pair, if you wanted to, RPK with ZywOo, that would probably be the direction I would go. Apex and Shocks have flashed a little bit of upside here and there, but they're a little bit more expensive, right? 6.8 and 6.4K. Again, all in all, I'm not really super excited about any of the other Vitality guys besides ZywOo, but if you want to go more that stars and scrubs approach, you might have to take a shot on one of these guys. So that's kind of where I'm thinking for Vitality. On the Na'Vi side, again, the same thing as Vitality. We have one guy that really carries the roster, and that's Simple. Now, you could argue I think Simple is a little bit more safe than ZywOo. I think he has a little bit higher floor, right? Rarely you're going to see him get below 50 or 60. So I do like Simple a good amount. I know you're going to have to pay premium 10.2K, but his upside is just enormous. When he's playing well, he can easily get you over 100 fantasy points, easily. And looking at his numbers the last few months, they're just amazing, right? 0.86 kills per round, 0.58 deaths per round, a 1.32 rating 2.0. Again, he uses the AWP as well. So I really like Simple if you can get to him. I think an interesting strat here is, you could, if you think this game stays close, pair Simple with ZywOo together. And you hope for just a close 3-game series where, again, all 3 of the maps are close. That's definitely viable, because these two guys, again, if this goes 3 maps, you're going to get a hard carry from both those guys, more than likely. So, obviously, I like Simple a lot at 10.2K. I think he's a very safe spend up. Na'Vi are the favorites, too. So, Simple is definitely going to be higher owned than ZywOo. And then if we talk about everyone else in the roster here, with the Electronic, Perfecto, Boomage, and Flamey. Electronic, I should say, at 6.8 is the guy that I have the most interest in on the Na'Vi side. He was earlier priced in the 8 to 9K range. Now he's 6.8K. Obviously doesn't have the upside as Simple, but he is the number 2 on this roster, and he is, decently consistent. If you look at his numbers too, he is pretty good overall numbers for the last few months. 0.7 kills per round, 0.63 deaths per round. Everyone else in the team, I believe, is negative. KD, Flamey, 0.59, 0.64. Boomage, 0.62, 0.68. Perfecto, 0.54, 0.62. So, yes, my next interest here on the Na'Vi side is Electronic. Normally, again, he was in that 7, 8K range. Now he's 6.8K. So I think that stands out if you want to go this Na'Vi route. Perfecto, that's a guy I'm basically crossing off at 6.2K. I do not think he should be that expensive. With Boomage and Flamey, they're close overall plays for me, but I'm just going to take the discount on Flamey at 4.6K. He's a guy that, not great, but he can have, upside games, right? And those are, games where they win 2-0, right? He put up 88 there against Pro. He put 70 there against Espada. So, going to a guy like Flamey at 4.6K is intriguing. Again, I do have some interest in Boomage as well at 5.8. He's a little bit more consistent, but you're going to have to pay a little bit more for him. Right, just looking at his recent game logs, 43, 56, 48, 57, 50. So I think Boomage, if you're looking for safety, like a safe, cheap play, I think it probably is Boomage. Perfecto is, again, a guy I'm kind of crossing off. Electronic, if you can get to him, I think he's my second favorite play on this roster. Let's move on to FaZe versus Fnatic. So we have some more heavy hitters in this one. Another game should be really fun to watch. On the FaZe side, we have NiKo at the top at 8.8K. He was just 10K that last slate, so I do like NiKo a lot here. I know it's a tougher matchup against Fnatic, but Fnatic's just really been struggling. They honestly should have got 2-0'd, but they pulled an amazing comeback there, and then won easily third map. So Fnatic's been very, very up and down. You're getting NiKo at a $1,200 discount than he was that last slate. So I do really like NiKo as a spend up. Again, I like a lot of the guys up top on this slate, just because there's really some star players on this slate. So I really do like NiKo at 8.8K. One of my favorite plays for his price. Let's talk about the other guys on the roster now. Brokey, Coldzera, Rain, and BMS. BMS is a guy at 4.4K that I have interest in as a cheap option. I think he's a pretty solid cheap play. 4.4 just seems way too cheap. Now, sure, he's only played 2 games with this FaZe roster, but he's looked pretty decent again. He's a 16-year-old. He's young. He even tweeted about how he was nervous the first game. He played a little bit. He played decent that second game. He made some good plays for sure. So I have interest here at that price point. I think he makes for a decent value option. So I think for his price, again, he's someone I'm very much considering as a cheap option. Definitely one of my favorite cheap options. With Brokey, Coldzera, and Rain, I think Coldzera is going to be pretty popular on the slate, 7K. Now, again, he wasn't great today, but the price point dropped, right? It was, 9K, then it was 8.4K, now it's 7K. I gotta prefer Cold. I know he's gonna be popular for sure, but I do like him a good amount for that price point. If we look at FaZe's numbers, Nico has the best overall numbers at a .79 kills per round, .67 deaths per round. Rain is slightly negative. Brokey is positive, but a little bit up and down. BMS is positive as well. That's why I like him as a cheaper option. And then Coldzera, 0.7 kills per round, .62 deaths per round. So, yeah, I do like Cold a good amount at that price point. Brokey at 7.6K, I think makes for the pivot, right? Coldzera is a guy that, again, I think is going to be pretty popular on this slate. And if you want to get off a higher-owned guy like Coldzera, you could definitely look to Brokey. He's going to be probably half the ownership, in my opinion. So that's something you could always look to, right? I think, probably Cold is the optimal play, but paying a little bit more for Brokey is definitely going to differentiate yourself. And if he outperforms Coldzera, you're in great shape. Rain at 6.6K is probably a guy I avoid. Again, Coldzera does really stand out. If you're looking to differentiate yourself, I probably would pay a little bit more for Brokey personally. So all in all, this FaZe side is a team that I do have interest in. Again, Nico at the top is one of my favorite plays. And then BMS at 4.4K, I think he's someone that does really intrigue me for value. On the Fnatic side, so let's look at, well, we just reviewed their numbers, right? So Crims had the big day today. He was plus 20. At 8K, I think he's the guy that's going to be the most popular on this team. He's a guy that's been struggling recently, but finally had a really good game there, 69-49. He's the third most expensive guy, so in my opinion, Crims is going to be the highest owned guy on the Fnatic side. Not saying he's a bad play at all, but if you want to differentiate yourself a little bit, getting $400 more for Flusha or $600 more for Brollan is not a bad idea. Now, Brollan's a guy I still think has the most upside on this team. He's very aggressive, so he does, kind of have a low floor if he's not playing well, kind of like today. Had a very, very bad start. Salvaged his day a little bit with 50 fancy points, but he is normally the guy that's initiating those gunfights. He is, again, in those power positions. He's playing aggressive. He's pushing through smokes. He's a very aggressive player. So, the range of outcomes are kind of high, but when he's playing well, he can definitely put up a big game. So I still think he is the guy that has the most upside. Crims, in my opinion, is probably the most popular. So again, if you want to differentiate yourself, Flusha, Brollan, I think they make for good pivots. JW at 6.8K seems priced about right. I liked him when he was in the low 6K range. 6.8 is still decent. I still think he is viable for, again, a guy that uses the AWP. Rarely you're going to get a guy this cheap that uses the AWP. So that is a plus too. So I do have some interest in JW. Golden at 4.8K, I just think there's better value plays personally. Like, I would rather get to the opposite side. BMS, I think, for FaZe. So that's kind of what I'm thinking for the Fnatic side. Lastly, here we have Gen G versus EG. So both these teams struggled in their first game. We have on the Gen G side where Automatic was the worst. I think he was like minus 20. So he's the guy that I think is going to be the least popular on this team. Sam had the best day. He'll probably garner some ownership at 6K. Costa and Bentet are decent plays for the prices, right? No one is outrageously priced in this team. Now, the reason for that is they are a little bit more balanced. Besides Daps is someone I usually don't get to, but the other four guys can all, have good games. So a little bit more of a balanced roster, so a little bit hard to kind of predict who's going to have the good game. Again, I think ownership-wise, Automatic is going to be super low owned, but he uses the op. Again, bad day, you're going to get really low ownership. You could take a shot there. Costa and Bennett are very, very similar price, very similar plays to me, in my opinion. I think I would slightly prefer Bentent for $400 less. Again, Sam, I think, is going to be somewhat popular for $6K. I think he's decent as well. All in all, it's Gen G team. Again, if we just look at their overall numbers, they're a pretty balanced team besides Daps. Right? Automatic 0.69, Kills per round 0.61, Deaths per round, Costa 0.71 and 0.67, Sam 0.65, 0.66, Bentent 0.69, 0.64. So there's not really a hard carry on this team. So that's why it's a little bit hard to differentiate who's going to have a really good day. But all right, lastly, let's talk about the EG side. So personally, I like the EG side more than like the Gen G side. On the EG side, Breezy at 8.2K really does stand out to me. He had struggled, I guess, recently, but he's a guy that can put up 70, 80 fancy points when he's playing well, and you're getting him at a pretty nice discount here at 8.2K. So I do like Breezy a good amount. I also have interest in Cirque at 7.2K. His price is falling, and he uses the op. I think he is the number 2 on this roster, and he's been pretty consistent. So at that price point, you could definitely pair Breezy with Cirque. I kind of like that combination. Another guy I'll bring up here is Ethan. And for the reason why I want to bring him up is because he went negative 31 and burned a lot of people last night. Now, I didn't play him, but he was pretty popular on that last slate, and he was terrible, 29 and 60. Now, he's not really a bad player for looking at his numbers for the last 3 months, right? 0.63 kills. Well, I guess I kind of did skew it a little bit. 0.63 kills per round, 0.68 deaths per round. You have Stanislaw, 0.59 kills per round, 0.65 deaths per round, and then Tariq at 0.64 and 0.69. So all three of these guys are pretty similar. And Ethan's at 6.6K. You're gonna have to pay a little bit more of a premium for him. So he's someone that is going to be virtually unowned on the slate. But Ethan is a guy that has, had good games, right? They don't have that most recent game up there, but I think he might have finished with negative fantasy points. He can get you 60, 70 fantasy points when he's playing well. So he's someone that intrigues me just for the fact that I know he's going to be virtually unowned after burning a lot of people. And, for him being a little bit more than Tariq and Stanislaw. Now, Tariq, Stanislaw are two guys I have interest in as well for their price points. 5.4, 5.2K are not bad, right? And these are two guys that also can get you decent fantasy games, right? We've seen 70 fantasy points from Tariq. Stanislaw had a really good game that last game. He still, can have upside as well. So those are two guys that are in play as well. Overall, this EG team, for their prices, do kind of stand out to me. So, I think my favorite play obviously would be Breezy if you can get to him at 8.2K, followed by Cirque. Those top two guys, I just think they're slightly underpriced right now. But the value options are definitely in play as well. Tariq, Stanislaw. Normally, there's only a couple of guys in a roster that I'm considering, but I think all 5 guys you can consider for EG today. Again, for ownership, I think Ethan makes for a very interesting play because he's going to be virtually unowned, in my opinion. But Tariq and Stanislaw, at their respective price points, are definitely viable. And if you get to one of those guys, right, you kind of are hoping for a 2-0, which is possible. But even in games where they haven't 2-0'd, right, Tariq and Stanislaw still don't have terrible numbers. So they're two guys that, if you want to go stars and scrubs, that I'm considering for sure. So now let's talk about roster construction, right? And who am I looking for the captain spot? So if we plug in one of those guys to the top right, Simple, ZywOo, Nico, Brolon, Breezy, if you go with one of those guys in the captain spot, it's going to make it a little bit difficult to make a lineup that you feel really good about, right? So say we just throw, ZywOo in captain, right? You have 7.1K remaining. That's going to make it a little bit tricky, right? So if you want to get Simple in there too, 6.4K. So you basically can't get any of these other guys at the top, and then you have to start looking for value. So it makes it a little bit difficult if you go that route. And that's why I think I'm leaning towards going someone for value in the captain spot. And the reason is this, right? So guys I'm considering, again, BMS for FaZe. If you plug him in the captain spot, he's only 6.6K. One of those EG guys, right, Tariq and Stanislaw, I think are certainly viable. Boomage as a safer option, I think is okay as well. Even Flamey for really cheap. So those are all guys you can consider. But let's just throw Beamez in there for FaZe. And then you have 8.6K remaining. So you already used your captain spot, and now you have 8.6K remaining. You could jam in a lot of these guys at the top. So you could probably get like 3 of these top 5 guys, maybe even 4, and then like another value play if that's the route you want to go. And right now, I think that's the route I'm leaning towards because this is a slate that, again, we have guys that really do carry their rosters. I want to jam in as many of those guys in as I can to my lineup. And the only way you can do that in the slate is play someone value in the captain spot. So that's probably the way I'm going to go. Beamez, again, I'm probably mispronouncing that. I should, watch the games with volume, but he's someone I'm looking to. Again, one of those EG guys. There are some value plays that you can look to here for sure in the captain spot. So that's probably the way that I'm going to go. And then as far as stacking goes, again, I think the 2-2-2 stack is probably the optimal way to go. But if you want to differentiate yourself, you could go like 2-2 and then 1-1, right? One from one side, one from the other. A 3-3 stack is more of a cash game build on teams you feel confident that you can win. But all 3 games are projected to be close. So this is a slate that is really interesting. There's a lot of different ways you can go, and I'm really excited to watch these games as well. So yeah, I think that is going to do it for the video, guys. If you have been enjoying the content so far, I'd really appreciate it if you could like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell. Hitting that notification bell does really help me out to be able to continue to produce free content for you guys. And yeah, when you hit that bell, obviously you know when these videos upload. So yeah, thanks again, guys. I really do appreciate all you coming to check out this video. Hope you guys are all staying safe and healthy, and I will be back for another video to break down the CSGO slate for Thursday. So I will see you guys all then.